Hello! We're up to the letter J, and J is for jokes and jesters. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about jesters of old. Jesters have fallen victim to a modern day stereotype. By and large, they're viewed as having been dumb people who are adept at clownish activities such as juggling or gymnastics and who wore flamboyant outfits. Though some may have fallen into this category, many jesters were actually quite smart, using their wit as a tool to help diffuse tense situations at the royal court. The clothes stereotype, though, has the most support, as many jesters did wear clothes that made them stand out from the crowd. Comical jesters and three-pointed hats are thought to have been the common outfit of the jester, but the three-pointed hat was probably an allusion to earlier times when jesters would instead wear donkey ears and a tail. The court jester of medieval times was usually allowed to speak his mind freely, while everyone else had to wait for the monarch to give permission to speak. Many times the jester would use his chance at free speech to criticise the monarch openly when no one else could. Thus, the function of the jester was to act as a critic, and many stories exist to support the fact that kings did indeed pay heed to the criticism of the court jester. The jester's ability to speak freely also came into play when tense matters were being discussed. Quite frequently, the jester would diffuse heated discussions by inserting humorous statements and thereby avoiding any unnecessary confrontations. Of course, mostly the jesters were there for entertainment at court functions, and quite frequent are the modern depictions of jesters' antics at court, and many jesters were, according to records, adept at singing, playing an instrument, or performing any number of unusual routines. But of course, noblemen and even kings didn't throw daily banquets, and besides, listening to the same fool or jester every night of the year would have become tedious, so medieval jesters only performed occasionally. The rest of the year they were expected to carry out other duties in the household, such as being keeper of the hounds, or travelling to markets to buy livestock to feed the family, their servants and the men-at-arms. Both Edward II and Edward III had a succession of fools and called them all Robert, regardless of their real names. By the 13th century, however, some talented jesters were beginning to achieve superstar status, and those who were lucky enough to be employed by royalty were provided with their own horse and servants. Tom the Fool, performed at the marriage feast of Edward I's daughter Elizabeth, and was given a fee of 50 shillings. Now this was a fortune, since a skilled thatcher could expect to earn only 2.5 pence a day, and you could buy a goose for 1.5 pence. But being selected as the personal jester of a medieval king or nobleman came with a serious health warning. Jesters were often required to go to battle with their masters to carry messages between the leaders of warring armies, demanding that a city surrender to a besieging army or delivering terms for the release of hostages. And unfortunately for the jesters, the enemy did sometimes kill the messenger as an act of defiance, especially if they felt they were being insulted, and sometimes used a catapult or trebuchet to hurl the unfortunate messenger or his head back to his own camp. And talking of heads, one of Shakespeare's most iconic scenes is that of Hamlet holding the skull of Yorick, his beloved childhood jester, while lamenting his untimely death. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, with most excellent fancy. Many jesters were disabled, hunchbacks, dwarves, or otherwise handicapped, and the desire to keep dwarves and other freaks at the courts was almost universally viewed as a way to contain their magical capacity for evil, as it was seen. But also it was believed that the touch of a dwarf could cure and fend off illness. Like many other historical court jesters, Verdi's Rigoletto is hunchbacked. Since his job is to mock everyone at the court for the amusement of the Duke, he wasn't well liked by the other courtiers. In fact, the figure of Rigoletto is based on a real-life jester called Triboulet, who suffered from microcephaly, a small head, and he served King Louis XII and Francis I of France. According to legend, Triboulet was not liked well at court and was often physically abused, and when he complained to King Francis I of a nobleman who had threatened to beat him to death, the king replied, "If he does, I will hang him a quarter of an hour afterward." To which Triboulet replied, "Ah, sir, couldn't you contrive to hang him a quarter of an hour previously?" Danny Kaye once remarked, "An unemployed jester is nobody's fool." I'll leave you with a couple of quotes from Fools of William Shakespeare. From Twelfth Night: "Better a witty fool than a foolish wit." And from As You Like It, the fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. That's all for this week. Goodbye.